Welcome to the Business Family Marriage Podcast with Tim Smoyer. This is his personal podcast where he shares what he's learning about growing a seven-figure business while also raising 7 children and deepening his relationship with his wife at the same time. He shares what he's learning, what's worked, what hasn't, what he's trying next to grow a fruitful business, family, and marriage. For more on that today, here's Tim.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to another family business marriage podcast with me, Tim Smoyer. It's great to see you guys again and talk about some of these things that overlap between family and business and the things that we learn in one, how they impact how we serve and manage the other. It's good to see you guys again. This is, if you're listening to the audio version of this, I'm actually doing it a video version for the first time. And guess where I'm putting it? You probably guessed, YouTube. Yeah, there's so many people who now listen to podcasts on YouTube. And I'm curious about some things that I think are coming down the line for YouTube and long-form, primarily audio-based content. And so putting this here, kind of an experiment, but also is like, you know, I get comments from you guys on social media being like, I don't have an iPhone. I can't listen to Apple Podcasts, or I don't use Spotify or whatever. Like, YouTube is probably like a place where we can all just kind of like access easily. So I did put my library, all my archives of audio-only podcasts up on the YouTube channel, and now video. Again, just on my phone, really casual, laid back. If this is going to work, it's got to be super easy and chill for me to just do it all from my phone on the go and be done with it and not take too much other time from family and work and things. So, yeah, I got the youtube.com/Tim Smoyer channel finally going. Fun story. Before we dive into this topic I want to talk with you guys about today, about how do we ensure that morale is high, both on our teams and like teams at work and the people who work with us and for us, as well as like in our family team morale. Like the same principles apply to keeping that morale pretty high. So we'll talk about, that's what I want to talk with you guys. I even made some notes here. Like, look at that. So I've even thought through it. I heard an interesting principle the other day that with so much happening in social right now, people just like, as soon as they think of something, they respond. But there's been studies done apparently that if you hesitate and wait only 3 seconds before responding and think through your answer beforehand, you will have a fundamentally better response. And I was like, oh, okay. So I took about 3 seconds before I hit record here to write down some stuff, some ideas for you guys related to this. But yeah, so it's a quick story about this channel, this youtube.com/Tim Smoyer channel, which is kind of fun. A lot of people don't know this, but I actually went to college and graduated with another Tim Smoyer. We were in the same program together, so we had a lot of classes together, overlapped. We were both dating girls named Rachel. In fact, his girlfriend was writing me letters for a little while. Our mailboxes were right next to each other. I was 495, he was 496. So we got grades confused. Professors giving us, one of us got one grade, the other got a different grade, and we both went back and were like, no, this is not my grade, and so she just gave us both the higher grades. We've had scholarship money confused. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, so the other Tim Smoyer married his Rachel, and so when I was doing more with YouTube, this was first his channel, youtube.com/Tim Smoyer, and back when URLs on channels made a bigger difference. And back then, and we're talking like, 10, 11 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, I don't remember, you couldn't transfer YouTube channels from one account to another. So Google had just bought YouTube, and the other Tim Smoyer knew that I was doing more with YouTube, and I asked him if there's a way I could get this URL from him. I think I asked him. I'm not sure if I asked or he just offered it. But either way, he ended up moving out of his entire Google account, creating another email address, and telling everyone like, hey, don't email me here anymore. I'm moving to a different address. And then gave me his password and said, here, now you can have the YouTube channel. And I was blown away. I was like, oh my gosh. And I felt bad for all these years because I haven't done anything with it. It's been like over a decade. And he's like, seriously, Tim, like I could have still had that email address and not moved out because you didn't do anything. Well, other Tim Schmoyer, if you're listening to this, thank you. I'm finally doing something with it. And I have for years have felt guilty and not guilty, but bad. I'm like, I need to do something with this. So now I am. I never really wanted to brand anything by my own name, Tim Schmoyer, because I always wanted to have enough flexibility that I could grow it and scale it beyond me and maybe even remove myself from it at some point. I don't have any such anticipations or goals with a family business marriage podcast. This is strictly, purely a personal thing when I have time and energy to do it. So today I have time. It's our Sabbath day. It's our day of rest, and I don't do any normal work on this day. So this morning, slept in. Dan and I did some catching up and spent, I think, like an hour and a half just talking about some things going on in our family. And then I took my son out to, we're a part of like this Christian Boy Scouts thing called Trail Life. And they had like a gun safety program going on this afternoon. So we went to that and I just ate dinner. And my wife's like, hey, you just go chill, take some time. I'll take the kids. And so that's what I'm doing. And it's like, hey, I haven't talked to the audience for a little while. And I've had this topic in my head for a long time that I've wanted to talk about, which is raising morale in our families and with our teams. So we'll talk about that. Before I do that, though, one of you guys submitted a question, and I wanted to answer it real quick.
Hi, Tim. My name's Chase, and I just finished your last podcast about family building and team building, and I thought it was awesome. I'm going to be going on a vacation with my family for about 3 weeks, and I don't get vacations that often, so I figure it's a good opportunity to try and use it as one, vacation, two, also maybe trying to family build a little. And so I'm going to be doing this in about 2 weeks, so if you have any recommendations on resources I can find or any more info that I can build upon this family building, that'd be great. And also, just loving the podcast, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Love that question. So, a guy I know here in the Cincinnati area, another dad, he has a podcast called Dad's Building Teams, or Dad's Building Family Teams. Sorry, and he has an episode on his podcast where he does an interview with a mutual friend of ours named Paul Owens. And on that episode, that's exactly what they talk about is like how do you do a family team retreat? And that last episode, in case you guys didn't catch it, I was basically talking about reflecting on the team retreat we had when everyone who works at Video Creators, not everyone, about half the people who worked at Video Creators flew out here to my house. We spent a couple days doing a team retreat and the impact that has on us and our relationships and everything like that and on the business, and then talking about how those same principles can also do the same thing in our family and the difference between just a family vacation and a family team retreat. And so that is an episode you should definitely check out. And I'll put a link to it in the show notes of this episode if you want to just tap it or click it or lick it. I sometimes forget my C. I don't know. Whenever I type like click through rate or click or something, sometimes I don't know. I go too fast and it ends up being lick through rate or just lick. It's just instead of click. So that's why I was laughing because I catch myself doing that a lot. But anyway, don't lick it. Just click it or tap it. And you guys can go check out that episode. Now, in terms of what's going on here with what I'm going to talk with you guys, if you have any other questions or comments, like I love that stuff, guys. I can't promise I can always get to them in a timely manner, but definitely for sure, use the link in the show notes to like leave any feedback or questions or comments, or you have a story you want to share about something that you've experienced in your family and business that you think would be beneficial for the rest of us, like whatever, use that link. I would love to hear it. I would love to hear from you guys, all right? Sweet. All right, so let's talk about keeping employees happy, boosting morale with employees. So I think starting at a very high level, I think it's really important that as business leaders, we who have teams, that we think really intentionally about the culture we're trying to create. Because if you have a really strong culture where people love working in your business, I have never asked them to work for free, but I'm like, and I hopefully never will. But like it's not that they would be expected to work for free, but it's a type of environment that would be like, if money wasn't a thing, I would still work here. Just because I enjoy it, I like the people, I like the values, I like how we communicate, and that was something that I'm thankful that I was thinking about from the very beginning. I made a lot of mistakes, and I don't think that was one of them because I had worked in previous jobs at places where I was like, I like the job, but I don't like the culture, the people, the expectations, the way things work here. And I didn't want anyone else that I knew feeling that way working for me. So hold on. Yes, Zeke? Yes. Yes, if you could build my Lego set. I have a pirate ship Lego set that I bought with my own blow money. Reminds me of my childhood. And I built it and reassembled and various different things. And my son Ezekiel now wants to do it. So he's going to do that. Yeah, so I wanted to make sure that our team culture was really, really strong. And there's a couple ways you can do this. So one, in fact, if you're watching the video version, I'm even playing this. Right on my wall, I have our core values: people first, results driven, mission oriented. Those are external. And then the internals: do it right, own it, and change is good. And on my wall, these are actually sound dampening panels that for shooting video in here, and apparently audio podcast on my phone. So those core values, like I hire by those core values. We make company decisions by like these core values are the framework that my team uses when they're trying to make decisions without me, which I hope I'm empowering them to do. Otherwise, our business would grow very slowly. And so when they are faced with a situation, like they run it through this framework: people first, results driven, mission oriented, do it right, own it, and change is good. And that helps us decide, like, yes, I don't have to offer this person a refund in this case, or I don't have to reschedule this meeting, or whatever the case may be, but we will because it's people first in this particular situation or something like that. In our business, for me, I hire people who embody these core values, not just people who like agree with them, but through the interviewing process, the work process, like that whole onboarding process and everything that we do with people, we can tell that this person not just owns it or whatever, but they like embody this thing. It's not just agree. So that makes a big deal. That we hire the right people. In fact, there's a lot more that goes into hiring. But if you hire the right, this is not an episode about hiring, because you can't hire people. You don't get to pick who's in your family. Like God just gives it to you. If you're a faith-based person, you believe that happens. If you and maybe I don't know, like those two things just don't correlate between family and business as well. Because you can get rid of people from your business, fire them if you need to. You can't really fire your kid from being a part of your family, or your mom or your dad or something like that, right? So how do you keep employees happy? About once they're on board and you've hired the right people, which is a whole nother topic in and of itself, then there's a few things. There's a couple of levers you have in order to really impact the culture there. The first thing that you can do is just pay them really well. Like not minimum wage, not the going rate that we would get elsewhere, but form a business that these people feel like from the moment they start, they're like, oh, wow, you must really value me. I feel really important. So this happened to me the first time. In fact, that Jeremy, the guy from Family, Dad's Building Family Teams, that guy from that podcast, he's the one who hired me and brought me here to Cincinnati in the first place when I was working with his former business. He's since sold it. They asked me, one of the questions they asked me is like, Tim, how much money do you need to make working here? And I'm coming from like a nonprofit church ministry background. And so I was like, yeah, I was thinking like bare minimum to survive. And I was like, I think we could get away with like $45,000 a year. And they looked at me and they said, no. And I was like, what? They said, no, you need to be making at least $60,000 a year. So we're going to pay you $60,000. And I was like, what? Like, hold on now. I just told you need to make 45, and now you're saying no, like I need to make 60? I was like, what? Who does that? Apparently they do. And what they bought with $15,000 is someone who felt extremely valuable now. Someone who felt like, oh, I'm in a place where I'm going to be taken care of. A place where they care about my family and my well-being. And not just a place that's going to extract every ounce of value they can get out of me and give me as little as possible. So when they did that, I felt like, oh, I felt very honored and glad I was there. So I do something similar with my team, and I pay them what I think is pretty well. One, so that they don't leave, because you find good people. That's really hard to find good people. So once you do, don't let go. And then two, I want them to feel that from the very beginning. So you can give them raises and bonuses. That helps improve employee morale. A second thing you can do is in the business is to design a better work-life balance for them. So we have technically me vacation days because my HR person made me do it. But before having official HR, it was just me being like, whatever you need to do, take care of yourself and your family. And our HR person's like, that's going to bite you in the butt one day, Tim. You can't do that. And I was like, but I've been doing it. It's been working fine. If you hire the right people, they're like, Tim, we need. So anyway, it's still pretty loose, honestly. But a work-life balance where hey, take care of yourself and your family first. Here's a job that needs to be done. But if you can't do this job and take care of yourself and your family, then we need to either figure something out or you need to get a different job, I suppose. But that hasn't ever come to that case. It's if someone's just got an illness and is just sick for a while, we'll figure it out. We're gonna work around it, make that work. If someone needs to take off and spend some time with their family, we're gonna make that work. In the job itself, it's there's not set hours. We expect the job to be done. But you don't have to do the job between 9 and 5 if you don't want to. If your husband works night shift and you just want to work when he's working, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me when the work gets done as long as the work gets done. Now, if you're meeting with clients and things, you need to obviously show up on time for those. But other than that, you be in charge of your work-life balance and giving them the freedom and control to do that, I think does that. Also, and I think we've talked about this before, but not just giving them that freedom and control over their hours, but also the authority to do their job, not just the responsibility, but the authority that goes along with it. So I have experienced there's nothing, well, not nothing, but it feels so crippling to be in a job where you are responsible for something to get done and you don't have the authority to make any of the calls, any of the judgments, any of the decisions to actually get that thing done. And you've got to get approval or run things around. And so you end up becoming just a worker bee rather than someone who's actually in charge of something. And so delegating authority, not with responsibility, delegating those two things together, I think is really important. Another thing is that I try to spend a lot of time on is making sure that everyone on our team is operating in their zone of genius. So in the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, he talks about this idea. He asks what's the difference between a company that is just really good and a company that 3x their market and all the competition and becomes this really big, crazy, great business. And there's a bunch of things in there, but one of the things that he says is the great companies they hire the right people and then and get them on the bus, so to speak, he says. And then once they're on the bus, then they work really hard to make sure that they're on the right seat in the bus. So it's not just hey, we got a good person here. It's also what is their zone of genius? What is the thing that they just love doing? And it's a type of work that they would do for fun, that they would do for free if they could, what type of work is that? And what's interesting is I try to get myself there, and so I thus hire people who complement me, who are not like me, and sometimes for different roles, people who are like me. So if we're hiring a YouTube strategist who's going to be doing 1-hour consultations, 5 hours, 8 hours a day, we need a really extroverted person who enjoys that. Honestly, I can do 2, maximum of 3 1-hour client sessions a day, and I am out. I'm done. My introverted self is hey guys, I love you, but seriously, I just need to go lay down on the floor of my office and stretch and just rub my eyes for a little bit, So So it's really important to me that I hire. That's part of the hiring process, making sure that this is not just a place and as a company, but as a role that they would really thrive in and be in their zone of genius. So getting the right people on the bus and then making sure they're in the right seats. And one of the things that I found is that in my team, those people need to move seats sometimes. Like they've been in a seat for a year or 2 years, and it's like, hey, they need a new challenge, and they're looking for something else, or their interests have changed, or something. Like people don't stay in their zone of genius forever in the same seat. I think maybe you're picking up some family correlations here. Maybe not. We'll get to those in a second. But making sure that those people are in their zone of genius really keeps morale really high in your team. I already talked about this a little bit, but I made another bullet point here, so I'll talk about it, which is like making sure people feel supported. We have on our team, we do a monthly one-on-one with each person on our team, with me and them. And the goal here is not to talk about your job or the tasks that you're doing, but to talk about like, what's your experience like working here this past month been like? What do you like? How are we doing? Like, what's going on in your personal life? What are you like? How is this job still working out for you? Anything we need to discuss about like the hours or like anything? And I always ask the question like, what do you need from me, like in order to do your job well? And so it's just like a high level, like, hey, how's the job going? How are we doing? And airing anything that needs to be aired, but for the most part, it's just keeping up to date with personal life, because people's personal lives totally impacts what happens in their work lives. If someone's struggling like with some sickness, that impacts it. If they're having a hard time with their spouse, that impacts it. If their kid isn't doing well in school, like that impacts how that person's doing at work. So just understanding those things and making sure that they feel supported and having that monthly check-in has been really important for us for keeping morale high. So let's talk about this from a family perspective now, because maybe some of you guys have been around, you can kind of see where some of this is going. What we are trying to do in our family is keep morale high, keep the energy level high. Your wife loves being in your family still. You love being your kids love being in your family. It's like at the end of The Incredibles when Dash just like lays back on the seat and he's like, I love this family, or like whatever, At the beginning, that was not the case, but because of the adventures and things they went through at the end, Dash, his family had captured his heart, and that's the main goal. If I'm going to skip to the end, a little prematurely maybe, is that the goal here of maintaining family morale is to capture and keep our kids' hearts for our family. Because if we don't, there's a lot of competition out there for our kids' attention, for their hearts. I don't need to get off track, but yeah, and once you lose it, it is really hard to get it back. You can get it back, but it is like quadruple the effort to get it back than if you had just captured it and maintained it and held on to it and been intentional about holding your kids' hearts. When you have your kids' hearts and the family morale is high, discipline feels way easier, way different in disciplining and correcting and raising your children. Marriage things feel like issues that come up feel much less significant. They're easier to work through, not easier necessarily, but it's just like you're coming at it from a different place than if morale is low and then this thing happens. It's like you are already at a low place, either with the relationship with the child or with your spouse, and now trying to come back from that is even more difficult, just like it would be in a working relationship, like if with someone on your team. So that's the goal here, capture your kids' hearts. Let's talk about a couple ideas what that looks like in our family. So number one, a couple things I have to remember with our family is that if my wife wants like a renovation of our master bathroom, right, or if she wants egress windows put into our basement bedrooms, well, they're not bedrooms, but when they get egress windows, they will be. If she wants those projects done, what I am not paying for necessarily are egress windows or a bathroom renovation. What I'm actually paying for is a boost in family morale. It's a thing that makes her feel valuable. It makes this home feel like this is a place where I belong, and it boosts family morale for everyone, but especially for my wife. For us, what that looks like right now, we haven't done those 2 projects yet. I want to. She wants to as well, but neither one of those are very cheap. So they're going to be some pretty big projects, and we'll have to get to those some other time. But there's other ways that I do think about this right now. So for example, we don't currently, but for the past year, we had a part-time nanny, almost full-time, I think, but I think it was like 25, 30 hours a week nanny who would come to our house almost every day and give my wife some time. Just give my wife like a break. She would come work in our family business of video creators, which she loved because she was kind of getting her head out of that diaper space, out of the cleaning and meal prep and all that type of space, and into something where she enjoyed using some of her administrative skills and talents to serve our family in a different way here in the business. But what I wasn't paying for there was necessarily just a nanny, someone to watch the kids. What I was paying for there is a boost in family morale for my wife, right? Same with a cleaning lady. Like we have a cleaning lady who comes over to our house every other Friday morning and does a deep clean of not the whole house, but most of our living areas, mostly our upstairs, and most of our living happens on our upstairs. We have hard to explain, but yeah, our kitchen, living room, living area, and bedrooms are all on one floor. There's a basement floor too, but she doesn't clean that. So, because we don't spend as much time down there. So she does a deep clean with the mopping and the vacuuming and the scrubbing and the dusting and the washing and everything. Like we kind of do a tidy up with the kids, but she comes, and that is not just like, I am not just paying to get something clean, because we could clean that and it'd be a lot cheaper. But what I am doing is I'm paying for a boost in family team morale there, right? So that's how I think about it. Like we're paying for something bigger here. So let's say like the family team morale is slipping and it's not as strong as it used to, and you can feel it starting declining, and there's things going on. Like, then what do you do? Well, in that case, I think like if something's going on that's really stressful, we need to plan something to alleviate that stress in our family. Like whether it's a trip, or sometimes it's just going out to eat, or it's going for a hike. It doesn't have to cost money. I think one thing that's going to be a big boost for our family morale is starting, actually, the same guy, Jeremy keeps coming up. The same guy, Jeremy from Dad's Building Family Teams podcast. Me, and several other dads here in the Cincinnati area used to get together every other Thursday evening to just kind of have some dad talk time, which is great. But Thursday nights don't really work for his family as much as they used to anymore, and so we're moving it to Saturday mornings. But most of us have like our Saturdays our day off, and we're like, no, Jeremy, we can't leave all of our kids at home with our wives alone on Saturdays too. Like, that's just not good for our family morale. And so instead what we're going to do is, Jeremy came with a great idea. We're going to all go to a indoor trampoline park. And yeah, it's going to cost a little bit of money, but when we get the annual membership, it's like not that much for the amount of time we're going to spend there. So we're getting an annual family membership to the indoor trampoline park, and the dads will go into one of the party rooms, and the kids are going to have a blast. That is going to be a huge boost to our family morale. Like I think it's going to be every other Saturday. So that's what I'm paying for there. Like when things are getting stressful, like maybe you're like, hey, we're going to go to the trampoline park, we're going to have some fun. We're going to go on a camping trip. We're just going to go to the zoo, the aquarium. If you can afford it, like we budget for this type of stuff in our family budget. If you don't plan for it, it will probably never make financial sense. But if you can plan ahead of time in your budget to know, like, we need a family team budget line item, or whatever you want to call it, like a family de-stressor budget item, or and so like our family we budget for eating out about once a month as a family, and we just hold on to that until like we need it now. Yep, this is the day. Like, Dan is stressed. We can't think about food right now, or I've had a big day or something. Like, our family's going out to eat, and we plan ahead for it. So if you just kind of like wait for it to happen, it's hard to justify the money, but if it's already been planned and set aside, then these types of family morale boosters are much easier to do and say yes to when you need to do them. So the thing that kind of ties all this together for me is like ensuring that our kids and our families are in their zone of genius with the chores that they're doing. Maybe there are some chores that you just got to do. Like no one likes it. It's just got to be done, right? And that's a part of life, even for people who work on our teams. Even for me, and I own the business. Like there's just stuff I just don't want to do, and that's just a part of it. But designing a better work-life balance for you and your family, ensuring that you and the people in your family team are operating a place of their zone of genius. And that I find is easier once the kids are older, when they start hitting like 11, 12 years old, they start to kind of gravitate towards different things and have preferences and interests. When they're like 5 years old, it's just like, hey, we're going to teach you how to clear the table. And they might not like it. They might love it. It doesn't really matter. But when they get older, it's a little bit easier to kind of see where their zones of geniuses are and be like, oh, okay, Hannah, like you love writing letters and mailing them to people. So you're going to be responsible for writing these thank you notes and sending them to these people, right? Like that's her zone of genius. Or Ezekiel really loves cooking, my 11-year-old. And he cooks dinners for us maybe twice a week or so. And so when we have company coming over, we're like, Ezekiel, can you make dinner? Or my wife will say, Ezekiel, we got company coming over next week. Let's plan a dinner. What do you want to cook? And then she'll go out and buy the food, and Ezekiel will cook it, right? So it's like when we start seeing those types of preferences, it's like, okay, this is the person got us placed into our family team. How do we leverage that giftedness or that skill or that preference for serving our family and the people around us, which, yeah, it's great. And so I do it with my family, with my work team sometimes too. It's like, oh, like Lennon, you got this skill that I wasn't really hiring for, but if you use this skill, you would just love I'm using Lennon as an example, but you would love your job. And this would be such a much more meaningful work for you. This would be much more meaningful work for you. So how do we leverage that skill in our business? And we start something that is valuable for us, but wasn't a direction I was intending to go, but because it's there, like you get the idea. Like, same thing kind of with our family. And so making your family members feel supported, whether that is by having a monthly one-on-one. I know dads in our area who do that monthly. In fact, one of them does weekly one-on-ones, but they do a monthly one-on. Another dad does it monthly. Meets with each of the kids, takes them out to a coffee shop. Hey, how are we doing? How are you doing? What's going on in your life? Where are you struggling? How can I support you? Then having those types of conversations on a regular basis, one, makes it so it's not weird and awkward when like you really need to have that conversation, and two, you don't get to the point where you really need to have that conversation because it's been an ongoing rhythm in your family, just like maybe it hopefully is in your business. And helping your family team feel supported as well. So I think you guys maybe understand kind of all the correlations I'm thinking about here. Really what it comes down to is it's really important to communicate and to manage expectations for what's expected of each person, and then communicate through that, including yourself, and making sure that they communicate with you, not because you're the leader, but because you're on the same level, so to speak, as them in terms of value. So it's not just all about like, hey, I'm supposed to be managing and making this awesome family, but like, what can I do? Like, and having people give you feedback and things as well. And then sometimes compromise is needed to really just be able to work together in things that I really had a picture and a vision for that my wife doesn't have a vision for. It's actually different or conflicting from mine. Sometimes there's just compromises that each side have to make in order to maintain team business morale as well as family team morale. But the goal really all comes down to capturing your family's heart and not leaving that as much room for your kids' hearts to be captured by something else, because wherever it captures their heart, like my experience from what I've seen, like a youth pastor and things in the past, is that it just ends up being a bunch of people who share the same parents cohabiting the same space. Yes, they love each other. Yes, they're related to each other. But I've seen too many times where those kids grow up and and some people say this is just natural, it's just normal. And I think that's true. And I'm trying to see maybe there's a different way that this doesn't have to be the default state where the kids grow up into teenagers and they don't want to be around their family anymore. They don't want to be around their like, and so I'm thinking like, is there a way if I capture my kids' hearts and our family is the place that they love being the most, where family team morale is high, that when they're a teenager and the kid next door is like, hey Zeke, do you come on out, like let's play, and I was like, oh, I thought Ezekiel, we were about to, head out to the store together or something like that. I want him to at least hesitate before running. I want him to go play with his friends. Like, I want that to happen. I think that's so valuable and so important. So I'm not saying, like, they should only be with your family and nobody else. But I am saying is, like, if our family captures our kids' hearts in a way that they would be like, no, I kind of, like, want to go to the store with my dad right now. Or like, Dad, can they come with us to the store? And be like, yes, well, get permission from their parents first, obviously. But, yeah, so that at least they hesitate and the family isn't something that they try to escape from. It's something that they feel like they are a part of. And I think when most teenagers get into that stage where that is happening, I think it's really difficult. That's what I'm kind of saying. It's not too late, but something else has captured their heart. They feel more valuable, more special someplace else. And I think it's really hard to get that back. It's not impossible. I've seen it happen, but yeah. So in a healthy way though, I hope when I say that it doesn't sound like I'm just trying to like hoard my kids and build walls around our property and keep them in. It's not like that at all. I want it to be a natural thing that they want to do. Not because they have to do or because I'm expecting it, but because it genuinely, like, their heart is with these people that they are living with. And it'll be fun and exciting when one day another guy or another girl comes and totally captures one of my kids' hearts and they end up getting married and starting a whole family of their own. But my kids aren't close to that age. My oldest is 12, so we've got at least maybe 10 years. I don't know until that day comes. So this is what I'm thinking about in the meantime. So I am really looking forward to hearing your responses to this one, guys. I know some of these things sound a little bit like controversial, depending on what you believe about family, maybe even about work as well. But use that voicemail thing, and I'd love to hear what you're thinking. What are you processing as you listen to all this? What's going through your head, and what are you thinking? So, leave me a voice message, and let's talk about it in a future episode here. Cool. Thanks for hanging out, guys. I'm gonna go inside, see what's going on with my fam, and publish my first video podcast on my phone. See how this goes. Thanks for hanging out, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.